How do you know?
Okay, well, it is the witching hour, 6 o'clock. My name is Alan Journey, co-facilitator with Kathy Conway of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now, and I would like very much to welcome you to our program, which we hope is going to be an inspiring program from our Master Climate Protector graduates, telling us, some of them at least, telling us what they have been doing. Before we get to the program, just a few comments. I should note that I am not Ellie Cosgrove, who was expecting to be here, but unfortunately feels a little under the weather. So you get me instead. Few notes on use of Zoom. You may well know all these already, but just in case not, please mute yourself now and stay muted during the course of the program. We will have a Q&A at the end of these series of presentations. If you have questions, which we encourage you to have, please write them in the chat button at the bottom of the screen. You will see chat, click that, and just type in your question, and please press return, and that will release them to the world. You have screen options. You can either have side-by-side speaker or side-by-side gallery. You should see a little icon which says view at the top right of your screen. If you click on that and you want to play around to see which of these formats you prefer, please go ahead and do it. As you will have discovered already, the presentation will be recorded. Before we start, we would like to acknowledge the long distant occupants of our lands. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land most of us are on today, the Takelma, the Shasta, the Klamath, and the Modoc. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And now I hand it to Kathy. No, I don't. I say we're going to have a format in which we have three presenters, as I mentioned. We'll then have responses to the questions you have written in the chat. Kathy is going to facilitate that and read the questions out. And at the end, Kathy will keep going and run through a quick summary of SOCAN programs and the activities of other groups that relate to climate. Over to Kathy.
We thought we would start with a quick introduction for you about what is a Master Climate Protector, in case you have not participated in this program. These are trained volunteers who work to inform and educate the public about the science of climate change and its consequences. They work within their communities, local governments, and promote personal and collective actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and serve as an educational outreach for climate literacy. The course that these people have taken is a 10-week science and action-based training course. It's for individuals who want to know more about climate change and what we can do to address this critical problem. It covers climate change science and the impacts on key sectors of energy, transportation, agriculture, water, and health. So additionally, you can become a certified Master Climate Protector. This includes the training plus a service component. And since 2017, we've offered the class 6 times. We currently have 92 graduates, and 44 of them have completed 20 hours of service and achieved certified Master Climate Protector status. So with that, we're going to start tonight's program, and we're going to have 3 speakers, as Alan mentioned, and they will be Aaron O'Kelly-Muck, Cynthia Holm, and Flavia Franco. Yeah, if you want to each raise your hands, they should be on the top of your screen, I think. And so I'm going to introduce Aaron, who's going to start. And when she finishes, then I'll introduce the other 2. So Aaron is the owner of Ruby Slipper Designs, an award-winning web design agency that helps nonprofits achieve their online goals. Aaron graduated the Master Climate Protector in 2020 and is passionate about working to turn the tide on climate change. I'll let her tell you more about herself and what she's working on. So I will stop sharing, and Erin, you take it over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and hello, everyone. Great to see everyone. Thanks for joining tonight. As Kathy mentioned, I took the MCP course. I took it in 2020, which was a very exciting year, as we all know. So we started in person, just happy-go-lucky, having a great time. And then, of course, in March, did a real 180. And Kathy and Alan and the rest of SOCAN learned how to do the course on Zoom. So big transition, but it worked out great. And we ended up graduating. So I really enjoyed taking the class. I learned a lot. I don't have a scientific background. So coming in, I was a little bit nervous, you know, what will this be like? Will I be really intimidated? But they really made it very approachable. There is the science to it, but it felt like something that I could access and grasp and ask questions and just really have that support. So I learned a lot in the 10 weeks that I attended the class, and made some really great friends. And I just want to also say that I'm really glad to have this now community of friends and mentors within SOCAN, because it can feel daunting, the path of someone who wants to try to turn the tide on climate change, especially when you read the news and have conversations and all of that and see like, oh gosh, are we making progress? So it's really, really nice to have people that you can bounce ideas off of and just that are there for support. So I was asked to speak tonight because in addition to taking the class, I also have sort of some extracurricular activities that I've done in my attempt to help in this particular cause. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of show you a page that's on our company website. So my website is Ruby Slipper Designs, and we have a climate pledge. And it goes through and talks about the various things that mostly I've been doing to just experiment with trying to help make some progress in this area. So without further ado, I will share my screen. Okay. And let me see if I can hit this button. Nope, alrighty. There we go. So I can't see anyone anymore. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type into the chat. So let's see, for our company, we created a climate pledge, which just basically lets people know that this is something that matters a lot to us, and that we're going to do what we can to take steps in a positive direction. So this page is really all about championing favorite organization and passion projects. So the first one listed here is SOCAN, and just wanting to kind of get the word out about who SOCAN is and what they do, talk about the Master Climate Protector course. One of the things that I'm excited about is that there was a survey about businesses taking action. What are businesses doing? I filled out that survey and then therefore got to be listed on the SOCAN website. It's an amazing resource, the SOCAN website. So I just highly recommend checking it out if you have the chance, or if you haven't yet. They've just done a great job organizing information and making it really accessible about, you know, what they offer, what they do, how to get involved. So, you know, just a real plug for SOCAN in general. And another thing that our company does is we do carbon offsets. So one of the things about being in the web industry is that you've got all these servers, which are computers, like in giant server farms plugged in all over the world, and they are huge energy hogs, like to the tune of the airline industry. It's insane. So, you know, hopefully over time, they're going to be powered more by wind and, you know, greener energy. But for now, what I'm doing for like my home office environment, and for the fact that I'm a web designer and I have all these different websites, is using carbon offsets. So one of my favorite companies to do a carbon offset is cool effect. So if I open up that website here, and just so you know, a carbon offset, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically you pay money that goes toward a project that is going to help with decreasing carbon emissions. So I think there's a really good explanation over here about what Cool Effect does. Their projects include planting trees, wind energy, methane capture, clean burning wood stoves, protecting habitat, avoiding nature loss. So basically, by contributing money toward this organization, they are using the funds in that way, which helps offset or off balance the carbon that I, as a web designer, am putting out into the world. So that's something that we do. For a long time, I was a part of something called an eco challenge, which is basically like a competition where a team would get together, mostly virtually because it was an online challenge, and compete against another team to try to basically live the more green lifestyle. So let's see, I've got their website open here too. And it explains a little bit about how it works. You can join a team or create a team, then you select actions, and then you complete the actions every day. So for example, there was an Earth Month Eco Challenge every April. And so every day you would log in and do something like, today I went out and picked up trash, or today I purchased a reusable straw, or today, a variety of things that are, from small actions to large actions. You track them and go against another team and see who gets the most points at the end of the month. And it's something that I used to do because basically what I found is that it started really big, but over time, the groups became smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I'm, an entrepreneur. I've got a business. I work 10 to 12 hours every day. So if I'm going to have a side project, I want it to make impact. And I just felt like that wasn't doing it anymore. So I'm kind of shifting gears now. And my newest project is, I'll scoot down here. So again, web designer, I can't help myself. I think in websites. I'm working on something else that's called Let's Go Green USA. And I want to do the top ways to cut carbon and move the dial now. So illustrated here, I've got just a great graphic that actually grabbed my attention and gave me the idea for this website. So if you have 1 hour of lawnmower use, that is the equivalent of driving 300 miles, like going from LA to Vegas. If you do 1 hour of leaf blower use, it's like the equivalent of driving from LA to Denver, 1,100 miles. And that, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my gas powered lawnmower? And so anyways, I immediately went out and I got electrified. And the other cool thing that I was able to do is just make that offer to my neighbors, like, hey, you guys, we just bought a leaf blower and a lawnmower. It mostly just sits here. We use it, once every other week. Please feel free to borrow it so that you can have access to it as well. So just trying to put that community spirit into things as well. So, oh, and I just added this. I drive a used Chevy Bolt. So another thing that I love to do is drive around town in this, and I feel really good about going electric. So I don't want to go over, and I think I want to stop and check in on my time. How am I doing, guys?
Sorry, you have 5 minutes if you want to use them, or we can use them for questions at the end.
Oh, cool, great. Yeah, well, I'll stop sharing my screen. Maybe just, I guess there's a couple other projects that I'm involved with. I've got a litter pickup crew that I'm a part of, which I know isn't directly about reducing carbon, but it feels like a great project that helps the earth. And also I have a group of friends that came together. This is before I joined SOCAN. And we're called the Siskiyou Climate Crew. And we will get together and just like talk about ways we can help and things we can do to contribute. And actually, we were really like super daunted by everything, like when we would get together. And then I was like, you guys, there's this great group called SOCAN. I feel like we should find out more about them. And, you know, sure enough, as soon as I met Kathy and Alan and started to be a part of the Master Climate Protector course, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so grateful that this organization is here, because these are people who are dedicated in this full-time way. They are providing science-based information. I can bounce questions off of them. They can let me know, like, hey, if there's one thing that you can do to really help, it's this. It might be writing a letter to the government or you know, whatever it might be. You know, I feel like I've got some really great guides in that. So yeah, those are things that I'm doing, that my company's doing, and really appreciate being a part of SOCAN. I guess let's go ahead and open it up if there are questions right now, or do we?
I think we'll hold the questions, but people, if you put them in the chat, and also if you're doing things to address climate change and want to put those ideas in the chat so others can see them, that would be great too. I think we'll go ahead and then we'll pick up the questions in the end. So next we're going to hear from a 2021 graduate, Cynthia Holm. Cynthia has been a professional environmental health and safety manager and educator for over 30 years. Her experience ranges from chemical manufacturing to military service. She currently is working in healthcare as the Providence Medford Medical Center EHS manager and Green Team coordinator. Cynthia looks forward to sharing her knowledge and experiences to help all of us confront climate change. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you for letting me be here tonight. Let me make sure I get the share screen going on here. Excellent. So Erin, you were a great lead into my presentation. Thank you very much. I came into the 2021 Climate Protector program, and my whole life I'd wanted to do something about the environment. And I think you can see on this slide, I was a young child in 1969 when the largest oil spill occurred in my hometown in Santa Barbara, California. My father actually worked in the oil industry and took us down to the harbor to see the sea life, the oil-laden waves. And at that time, I proclaimed to myself as a little child, if I ever have an opportunity to do something for the environment, I'm going to do it. And obviously, I've been working in the field for over 30 years. But when Mother Nature gave us a timeout in 2019 and said, go to your room and think about what you've done to the planet, I kind of took a refocus. At the same time, Providence was taking a refocus and proclaimed some things too. So it sort of seemed like the perfect meeting of the minds, as well as several of my really good friends had taken Master Climate Protector and said, I think you should do this. So I signed up for the 2021 course, the completely online course. Make sure I get myself, for some reason, I'm not able to progress my slides here. Oh, here we go. So what I wanted out of this class was to orient myself to the Northwest region. Yes, I'm a California transplant, had moved here in 2017 and said, I really want to get a better feel for what's happening in the climate and the environment in this area. I wanted to learn more about specific Southern Oregon climate issues and just sort of get a better feel for what was happening and how potentially I might be able to integrate what I'm doing with my work at Providence with the rest of the Southern Oregon region. I want to link into climate resources, and as Erin mentioned and showed the SOCAN website, a plethora of information for every aspect you might want to look at for climate change. And it's just amazing the resources that are available. It's a huge help. And then I wanted to kind of boost my resume because I knew Providence was kind of going in a direction I might want to help in, and I felt this is my way to do something. So besides doing those things that I kind of set out to do in the course, I also gained some additional things. One of them was the credibility. I have an organization behind me and this recent current information that I could lean into environmental projects at work, as well as whatever I wanted to do in my personal life. Of course, it gave me the confidence to step into this larger role than what I had at work. As Erin alluded to, there's a huge network of individuals and like-minded people, which was amazing. Not only the group of friends that I had here acquired in Southern Oregon, as I sort of stepped into this role, I ran into Master Climate Protector colleagues at Providence. Shout out to Liz, who's on the call, and just the like-minded people coming together to bring support. And with that, I came out of this course with a bunch of hope. I mean, there was things that I saw that I could do, things that I saw people were doing, and I also saw a way that I could lean into doing more things. So Providence is a small hospital, right? Does anybody know how big our system is? I know everybody thinks we're the small hospital in the Valley, and we are the small hospital in the Valley, but yes, Providence Health and Services is a huge organization. We have 120,000 caregivers. That's what we call our employees, 52 hospitals in 7 states and over 1,000 clinics. We are the 3rd largest healthcare organization in the nation. We've got some muscle. We're actually the only healthcare organization that was invited to the Climate Summit in Glasgow and because of our environmental stewardship. And we realized that we had some power, and Providence has always worked on stewardship. We've always worked at helping the poor and the vulnerable. And Providence realized the greatest risk to health in the 21st century is climate change. Okay, along with that, we also realized that healthcare contributes 8.5% to the nation's greenhouse gases. Okay, as our clinicians and those of us working there, we have an oath to do no harm, but we also realized we're part of this problem. And in 2020, actually, Beth Schenk was appointed as our executive director for environmental stewardship. And she said, when we degrade the environment, we degrade our opportunity for optimal health. And kind of this whole, like I said, Providence has been feeling this and thinking this. We've always talked about stewardship with regards to our mission, but something came to a head in that year. And in 2020, Rod Hochman, who's the chief executive officer for all of Providence, said, we've got to do something, and we've got to do something now. And I'm proclaiming we will be carbon negative by 2030. That was big, really big, and very exciting for a lot of us that had the passion and interest in the environment, because now everything we do can shift to this. How are we working to climate change? What are we doing in our programs that help to meet this goal? And completely supported from the top down. And I'm just excited to be part of this machine that's trying to get this happening. You see the We Act acronym there, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but that was so exciting for that to happen in Earth Day of 2020. So I took the Master Climate Protector program in 2021 and began doing my work as increasing my environmental stewardship work here in Providence. I want to talk about what they decided in their Providence plan for the environment. They have sort of certain focus areas. I already talked about the emission reduction and We Act, and I'll get more specific on that because that's kind of where the rubber meets the road and where a lot of our caregivers can actually do individual action. But another thing that we look at in our organization is we have health and resilience. So we're committed to helping build a climate resilient community in the communities we serve. We also are working to engage clinicians in their specific practice areas and looking at what are specific challenges that they meet trying to meet these goals. And we are like one giant city, one giant metropolis, and trying to solve these problems. So one thing I might solve is decreasing something for transportation, but I've increased the cost over here, and I've increased in impacts in different areas. So we're trying to build overall health and resilience. We also have a commitment and engagement, and I'm really proud of the organization for leaning in, putting their money where their mouth is, and putting their mouth where their mouth is. I mean, they really dive into these things. They have collaborated with Microsoft in order to parallel with them on their carbon negative goals, and are working in sync with them to develop a way to measure our climate footprint, our carbon footprint, and lots of different angles. So currently we had a baseline in 2019. We've been working with Microsoft to build this so that we can, every little thing. So not just in our hospital, but the supplies being transported to our hospital, the waste that are being transported out, how much is that impacting our things? We also get in partnership with other important organizations, Practice Green Health, EPA Energy Star program for our construction projects. And I just want to do a shout out also to all the Oregon acute care hospitals. We actually won the 2020 environmental award from the Practice Green Health for environmental stewardship efforts. So we're really proud of that. We're also founding members of climate councils, the U.S. Healthcare Climate Council, California and Washington State Healthcare Climate Alliances. And another thing Providence said is that we're a big elephant in the room, I guess, and we've got to show leadership, and we have to show it on so many different levels, because they're realizing obviously it's a huge problem and there's so many things we can do to help it, but we need to really understand those areas and again, lean in and put effort and knowledge. And we have a breadth with 120,000 colleagues. There's a lot of experience from many different areas that can come to help this. Environmental Justice Collaborative is a huge thing. I'm part of this. It's so interesting. Again, we're here to help the poor and the vulnerable, but realizing climate change most adversely impacts the poor and the vulnerable. And so again, that's where our healthcare organization really wanted to lean into this. We also have a technical advisory group that works with things when we're for construction, et cetera. Our procurement group and a whole procurement plan and other areas of leadership. But the one thing I wanted to focus on that I've been working on with our group down here is the We Act goals. And this was something they came up with this acronym when they studied and looked at the impacts of healthcare on climate change. They realized there's these 5 areas that they could focus on, put into a cool little acronym so everybody knows we act to become negative by 2030. And this is our areas that we look at. Number 1, waste. One of the things we're looking at is to reduce our waste sent to landfills and incineration by 50% by 2030. Other things for energy and water, we're looking to minimize energy intensity in our buildings through conservation, and any new buildings have to meet the LEEDs and building design modernizations for reduced energy and water use. Agriculture and food, we're looking at supporting local and sustainable programs and working to reduce our waste in that area. Chemicals, this was one that you may have seen on the news. Dr. Brian Cheeseborough is one of our anesthesiologists. He realized that there's different anesthetic gases and certain ones really adversely impact the environment and certain ones don't. And he put a whole effort on just starting in Oregon and then went throughout the region to say, if we change, if I teach the anesthesiologists their impact on the environment, they're going to change their usage. And they've already reduced emissions from that particular anesthetic gas by 50%. And they're looking for things, for example, nitrous oxide, we're also realizing is a concern. And because of some of our buildings are rather antiquated, they're realizing there's some loss in the process. And there's many projects for retrofitting our nitrous oxide programs. And again, our hazardous waste, minimizing the types of materials we have, their impacts, and then trying to reduce how far we have to transport them. Right now, our hazardous materials that have to be incinerated are sent all the way down to Port Arthur, Texas. So we are trying to change that process. And that kind of leads into transportation. And actually, we've already met our goal of reducing travel emissions because of COVID. So that's a COVID silver lining. We've gone to Zoom, and that also accelerated our use of online meetings and actually brought our SharePoint intranet program up to date. They've really, brought it into the new millennium. So super happy for some of that and some of the COVID silver lining actually for our organization. I was going to show this video, but I don't want to run over time. I'll put it in the chat, but this is showing what some Earth Day activities throughout the 7 states that were done at some of the local ministries. And it's kind of just a 1-minute video. It just shows some activities and projects, everything from compostable dinnerware to different types of recycling and other activities. I did want to highlight some of our projects in the Southern Oregon service area. And one of them I mentioned already, the stewardship SharePoint. And I just wanted to highlight, I don't know if we can see it on the screen here, but actually on our quick links, you'll see Southern Oregon Climate Action Now is up on the Providence quick links, and along with other things, the Medford Garden of Giving. And the Garden of Giving, I'm just super proud of this. We've got a small but mighty little group of gardeners down there. And we have 12 garden boxes. And those garden boxes produced last year about 300 pounds of food, and this year almost 800 pounds of food. With the fires, the Almeda fires that happened, all that food went to fire families last year. And then this year we realized we have other food insecure families. Not all fire families needed the extra food right now. And we've gone to giving this food back to our caregivers. And it's also COVID kind of added to that too, because donating to other organizations wasn't working out quite right. But this has been a huge positive for us, and we're growing our own food, and people are really excited about that. Another project that we do is the Maslow Project. We donate any bottles and cans that are recycled. Each clinic and department can have their blue bags for recycling, and that goes directly to the Maslow Project, which helps youth in the area. Additional, we last year did a huge Earth Week education that took the We Act acronym, and every day of the week we highlighted one of the areas of the We Act, and I wanted to thank SOCAN for sending representatives out to that. That was really fun to have, be able to, we actually had permission to have outside visitors on site during that week, and brought a lot of awareness about climate change and the We Act program to Providence, and was a great activity to have. And we're looking to expand that more in the new year. Other things that are happening is we are expanding our recycling program. I think I already mentioned about, well, I didn't mention, but usually we get supplies from Portland. When the trucks go back, they're empty. Starting in the new year, they're going to go back full with recyclables. Recyclables that don't normally get recycled anywhere, because they're going to be getting recycled at Providence's own recycling center. This is styrofoams, medical plastics, a lot of items that cannot go to Rogue and cannot go to other areas for recycling. And they've found locations to upcycle or reuse these materials in the Portland area. They're building a whole line to receive our waste, and that's going to start out in Q1. Really excited about that happening. Another thing that's happening here directly, heating and cooling buildings, as you know, is a huge energy drain. And we are building the hospital. Proper side of the building was built in the late 60s, so we did not have double pane windows. We have a double pane window project going on at the hospital that'll start out in the new year. Had some delays because of COVID, but really excited about that. And there's some other fun construction projects coming down the pike that are all meet environmental climate concerns with our work with the EPA. And speaking about construction, the next Master Climate Protector program, I will actually be teaching one of the sessions, the energy and construction session. I'm excited about that. I represent safety on the construction projects that happen down here in Southern Oregon service area. And some of the questions that we'll be answering is in my session will be, what's the energy appetite and how's it being fed? How does where we live and work affect the climate? What is and can be done in these sectors to help climate change, reduce climate change? How does environmental justice affect these sectors, and how can I make a difference? And we all can. I mean, it's just one, I'm one voice down here, and I now have a huge group of like-minded people at work and in the community. And I also have a large organization that's willing to go in the same direction, and it's just amazing. So it's been my pleasure to share this, and I hope that some of you would want to join us in the Master Climate Protector program. And please feel free to reach out. I just wanted to do a shameless plug for Providence. At any one time, we're so big, we have 17,000 open positions. And if anybody wants a job, if you put me down, I get a referral bonus. So I've included my contact information, any questions, and I'm happy to show you around Providence when we are allowed to have visitors and show you some of the programs we have going on. It's been a pleasure to share with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you very much. Would you put your contact information in the chat in case people didn't have a chance to read that?
Oh, certainly. I'll put some other links.
Okay, that'd be great. And we're going to move on to our last person. And if you have questions or thoughts, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll come to those in a few minutes. So last, but certainly not least, I want to invite Flavia Franco. She's a 2021 MCP graduate. She attended a book tour talk by Paul Hawken on his book Project Drawdown. So hopefully many of you know about this. And his advice then was to influence others, whatever that looks like for each person. And she is looking forward to Paul Hawken's next book called Regeneration, Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation. She says this will influence thinking and actions in the years to come. The local volunteer group she joined in 2019, Southern Oregon Food Solutions, was a spinoff of Project Drawdown and Southern Oregon Pachamama Alliance. So Flavia is here to share some of the things that she's been doing with you. Go ahead, Flavia.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. And I'm going to share this chart. There's a lot of information on it. I'm not going to talk about everything. Mainly, I'm just going to talk about the peach colored items and the light green items. But I did do the color coding to kind of help you scan through this information a little bit easier. So the blue shaded items are things that had cost associated with them. And the blue italic items are things that were involving Southern Oregon Food Solutions. And then the bright green, intense green items have to do with leveraging social dynamics, since we're social creatures, to cause the major shift that we need to have in our culture to get us closer to net zero. So if you have any questions, hopefully we can address them at the end, but I do have my contact information there. And if you have any questions about Southern Oregon Food Solutions, please, by all means, contact me. So we can begin. Regarding accountability, accountability is a loaded word. It is usually used when holding criminals accountable or politicians accountable. But the way I mean it in two different ways. One way I mean it is in community, we're accountable to each other. So an analogy would be, if you live in a small village and one farmer needs to raise a barn, it's usually agreed upon that everybody pitches in and nobody is expected to pull a disappearing act. So we're all accountable to each other in that way to help out. And then the other way I mean it is there is a strong correlation between managing and monitoring. So you can't really manage your carbon footprint if you don't measure it, if you don't monitor it. So I've been tracking my electric bills and my water bills. And so it's helping me kind of keep an eye on how much I'm consuming here. So that's accountability. So the next thing is education. So MCP, big education component. And I'm very passionate about education. It's made a huge difference in my life. And some of the things that I learned, I thought I knew a lot about climate change already, but I learned more about a few things like regenerative agriculture and the impact of the tipping points that are involved with climate change, and also the impact of fast fashion on our situation, and also in general, the consumption of goods. So it was very useful to me for that. And then I also wanted to talk about support and coordination. So when you think about grassroots organizations, you think about people being organized to show up for massive protests or letter writing campaigns or petition drives. And this group is organized to be the most effective it can be. And the classes are structured so that everybody is participating. And what happens then is that you can voice your concerns and reactions. And that kind of helps you think about the content of the classes in a different way. And you're actually starting to become part of, integrate into the group. So I thought that was a really good part of the class. And then another part of the class was service. So when, I spoke about, in my intro, there was the thing about Paul Hawken, and he's the author of Project Drawdown. And he said, one of the most important things we as average folks can do is influence others. Well, having a service component kind of helps me keep track of what I'm doing in total. And it keeps me from getting discouraged. So as you can see, all these activities is what we've been up to. And it makes me feel like I'm more connected. The service makes me feel like I'm more connected to what I learned. And it also, when I'm doing service, I'm actually generating active hope, which is an antidote for despair, in my opinion, and I'll get more into that in a minute. So, and then, what being a master climate protector means, and that is, the class came highly recommended to me by a few people that I know here, and what I hope, if I say that I'm a master climate protector, that people will be more interested in collaborating with me when I'm working with different groups throughout the community. And I hope that, when I tell people that I'm a master climate protector, that they're going to see me as somebody who is informed and serious and committed. So, and then the next thing about the class is the knowledge resource. So before I took the Master Climate Protector class, I taught a class at OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning, about climate change. And if I had reversed that order, I would have had a lot of access to the great website that SOCAN has. And it would have probably improved the content of the class that I taught. And to me, part of climate despair is the feeling of powerlessness and the feeling of isolation and being alone. And having access to all this knowledge and resources and community brings back the feeling of empowerment and the feeling that I'm part of being a change for good. So I wanted to touch on the light green items, because these are the things, maybe not specifically addressed in the class, but these are what I'm taking away from, this is what I got out of the class. So the first one is the seriousness of the situation. So I had looked at the speeches that Greta Thunberg had given, over the last few years since 2018. And she often mentions the carbon budget. And I didn't really understand why she kept repeating about the carbon budget. And I didn't really understand what the carbon budget was, but I do now. And I also understand why that was driving her sense of urgency. And it's also driving the sense of urgency for me as well. And then framing the message. I think it is really important how we frame the message. And I've had people tell me that I should not use words like sustainability or climate change. And I think when we buy into that, we lose. And it's my opinion, but that we are being made to put off talking and saying what must be said. And I think that we need to be framing everything that we do in terms of sustainability. So the next thing is that we must address social and economic justice and equity simultaneously. And unfortunately, the urgency of climate change must now compete with the urgency of economic and social needs as well. And that's because the organizations and people who have exploited our planet and our economies are now being protected and enabled by the very systems and institutions that were built to make our society thrive. And they continue to exert their influence to prevent any meaningful change. So you can see that happening on a daily basis. And so I think, it's Carrie's, in my opinion, that we cannot address social, economic, and environmental needs separately in isolation, and it won't be effective if we do that. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was what I mentioned earlier. Active hope is the antidote for despair. And I've seen a lot of articles in the last year about climate despair and how to handle it. And basically, if you use denial or ignoring or simple hope, it's not going to work for very long. And to me, active hope is doing something that will improve the probability of the outcome that you want. So an analogy would be if you have a relationship with a very critical relationship with someone, and it's in trouble, say a relationship with your child or your spouse or your livelihood or your health, and you know that you'll be devastated if things continue as they are. So what do? You do what you can do in order to fix it. And to me, SOCAN and Master Climate Protector is a way to generate active hope and restore a healthier relationship that we have to have with nature. So that's what I wanted to convey with this. And so hopefully I haven't run over, and that's it. So thank you for letting me talk, and I'll stop sharing now. That's okay.
Thank you very much, Flavia. Thanks to all of our speakers. Let me pick up on a few questions, and if these bring questions to mind, feel free to add them to the chat. So Camille said that she recently calculated her carbon footprint and was really disappointed with the results. Now, I think most of us can share that with you, Camille, so you're not alone. Her question is, should she as an individual also contribute to a fund that helps the climate? Any of you want to comment on that? What are your thoughts?
I'll start with the first swap on this one. I feel that, yes, we can contribute to groups that help, but I feel just more that individual things that we can do. I think through the Master Climate Protector program and other areas, you can get information and knowledge about certain things you can do individually to reduce your footprint. And then I have to say that I do, and I'm starting, because what I learned in the Master Climate Protector program, for example, if I take a trip and I have to travel via airplane, at that point, I would contribute to something to reduce my carbon footprint in that particular case. And that's my suggestion for if I was going to contribute to a larger group, but also just kind of refocus and look at certain things I can do individually.
Thanks, Cynthia. Erin, were you going to add something to that?
I was just going to say that in the Master Climate Protector class, we did a carbon footprint calculator, and then kind of collectively were able to really talk about like ways that we could bring it down, and what was the most effective way to turn the dial. So, and I'm with Cynthia. I also, if I have to fly, do it. And since I know that like web hosting is on parallel with the flight industry, like that's a reason why I do those. But I think that the most important thing is to try to keep the carbon from going out there in the first place. So, to try to figure out those ways that we can is just a great way to go.
Flavia, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, when I look at the things that we had been doing all along, so we already came to Master Climate Protector class having a pretty good reduction of our carbon footprint, but I think the carbon footprint calculator is pretty thorough. So there's always a category that you haven't yet really gotten into that you can make improvements on. And it part of it is, has to do with our daily habits. And so you just, once you start reinforcing something, after a few days, you're pretty much into a good habit. So it's pretty easy to make these transitions. It's really hard to make all the things change overnight. So just, doing a little bit and getting one good habit established and then tackling something else and then tackling something else. And pretty soon you feel like you're a greenie and you're holding down the fort. So does that help?
I think so. And one thing we stress in the Master Climate Protector is after you've done that footprint calculator, you look at what numbers are high and you see if there's anything you can do in that area. And those actions, like these people have been saying, those actions are important to take first. And then after you've done everything you possibly can do, then you go into the offsets to, like Aaron was talking about, to balance things. So I put the link, socan.eco/actions, and we've tried to accumulate some ideas there. So you might be interested in looking at that webpage. Well, actually, it's one page with lots of links to see if there's anything that is fitting for you. Okay, I think Alan had a question.
Yeah, I have a question for Cynthia, and I'm not trying to be confrontational here, Cynthia, just to understand. One of the concerns that I have is the tendency to focus on carbon rather than greenhouse gas emissions or carbon dioxide equivalent. So a lot of times people will say, well, that's what I meant, carbon dioxide equivalent, which is measuring all the other gases in relation to carbon dioxide. And so my question to you, if you can answer it, and it may be that you don't have the answer, I don't know, is when Providence says they want to be carbon negative, and I think it was by 2030, if I recall, did they really mean carbon dioxide equivalent negative, or did they mean neutral? Because most people talk about neutral rather than being negative, because that means we're actually sucking greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere.
Like I mentioned in my presentation, I think when Rod Hochman stepped into this, he might not have, he had the right intent, but learning himself as we move into this, that you have to validate and verify and know what you're looking at. So they are looking at the carbon equivalents and not carbon specific. So that is some of our work with the Microsoft and measuring our carbon equivalents. And I think, yeah, carbon neutral is more of what we're going to be getting at, but he wanted to go carbon negative. I mean, he wanted to be so bold that we would have to step into it. And I admire that in the leadership of saying, we're going to go there, whatever it takes to go there. So, shoot for the moon and you might land in the stars. And I think that's what he was trying to do with his intent to be carbon negative by 2030. We already know there's a lot of work to get there. And I think, hey, if we're just carbon neutral or getting there, it's any of this work is good work. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I thought of that. I thought that was probably where you were.
Cynthia, also a question. Do you know if Asante's doing anything similar to what you're doing? Do you have any knowledge of that?
I know there's several things Asante is doing that I can say for sure. They're doing recycling. I know that they have pretty good hazardous waste management because I collaborate with their safety manager on some of those things. I also know that the construction that they're doing meets the LEED's requirements for leadership and environmental in their building designs. And honestly, I'm not sure. And that's a great question. And I'm actually going to try to reach out and see. I do have some contacts over there. I do know that Providence, just because our mission for the poor and the vulnerable and the concern for environmental impact, just because of our own organizational mission is why this has been driven that way. And like I said, I know that they're doing many different things. I just don't know if they've said it, I don't know that they have the whole, mission statement type of thing, but definitely I've been super impressed with what all organizations in the healthcare industry are trying to do. Some of you might know I came from chemical manufacturing and other things like that. And the concern for the patient and the concern for the individuals and what climate change is doing to infect our patients and that direct impact that people see, the providers see, is why all caregiver organizations that I know of are working as hard as they can in that area to work on that. So
we do.
I like.
We do
Go
have
ahead.
a physician who graduated from MCP who was on staff at Asante. Maybe we should put you in touch with her.
That'd be wonderful. I'd love to work together with her. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cynthia. We have another question from Molly. Can any of the speakers share who or what have you influenced where more change or people have understood the seriousness of climate change? So can you identify any specifics to give us ideas?
Yeah, I could go. So the first thing would be, you don't know what kind of influence you have. So I'm going to say that first, but I do have a specific example. It's kind of like you throw a pond in the water and the ripples keep going out. You don't know at what point those ripples are going to affect some outcome. So you have to have faith that whatever you're posting on Facebook, whoever you talk to, your friends are going to start thinking about climate change a little bit more frequently, a little bit more seriously. And to give a specific example, one of my relatives never puts climate change first in her decision making. She puts economics first, and if there's a green alternative, if it's not the first economic alternative in her decision making process, it's not going to happen. But just recently, she asked about getting a solar system on her roof. So that's kind of a big step. It's capitally intensive. And I don't think that she would be coming to that conclusion unless it started to sink in a little bit deeper about the seriousness of the situation. And that, and so I'll just say, with the news coming every day and the volume of articles that I see, granted the algorithms kind of point me towards climate change related articles, but I do think that climate change is coming up higher and higher in people's consciousness in the mainstream because of the changes that we've already seen and that we will be seeing in the next year. So it's a liability now if people don't address it. If our city managers and state managers don't address it, they're going to be liable for what do you call it? Neglect. So that's my take on it. So I'll let somebody else address it.
We're running out of time, so I think that all of our presenters tonight have agreed after we finish to stay around for 5 or 10 minutes. So I think I'll go ahead and finish the last bit that we have. And then if you have other questions or want specifics, then maybe you can stay around. The next Master Climate Protector course is going to begin Wednesday, February 9th. It'll run from 6 to 9 p.m. It'll meet weekly every Wednesday for 10 weeks. So the last class will be on April the 13th. And it will be on Zoom. We've decided that we have no choice. The cost is $100, but we have scholarships available. So if you're interested, or if you're already a Master Climate Protector, and we do have quite a few here tonight, if you can share with friends that we are getting ready for the 2022 Master Climate Protector. More information on the Master Climate Protector website, socanmcp.eco. And Ellie, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here tonight, will take care of questions that you have. That's Ellie at socan.eco. I'm going to very briefly go through some of the things that are coming up for SOCAN. Everything I'm saying is on the SOCAN calendar. That's socan.eco/events. So we are divided into 5 different programs, and within those programs, we have different projects. Our program areas are community engagement, education, government, natural resources, and transportation. In the community engagement program, the December meeting, we typically do not have a monthly meeting in December. We usually have a winter solstice party, but we're making the decision that this year, because of COVID, it's not going to be safe to get together. So we're just going to have to greet each other with a happy solstice and stay safe and healthy as we go about doing things. The Businesses Taking Action project is also under community engagement. These are the businesses that are currently listed, and Erin mentioned this earlier as one of the, she's one of the businesses that are listed here. If you go to the website, you can see their responses to the questionnaire about actions they're taking. Under the government program, the federal and state project will meet Monday, December 13th from 2 to 3:30. It will be on Zoom. The links of all of these are on the SOCAN calendar, socan.eco/events. The County City Project will meet December 18th from 1 to 2. And again, that's a Zoom meeting. A subgroup of that is the Jacksonville Action Team, which is going to meet Monday, December 13th from 4 to 5 in person at the Jacksonville Public Library. Masks are required for that meeting. Also under the government program, the Ashland Climate Action Project is having a presentation on Monday, December 20th from 7 to 8:30. The project is looking at, after the summer of 2021, checking in with local growers to see how they're responding to what's happened. And again, the link for that is on the calendar, and that requires registration. Under Natural Resources Program, the Forest and Fire Project will meet Wednesday, December 15th from 2 to 3:30.
2:30.
Sorry, from 2:30 to 3:30. And then these are some of the other programs that don't have meetings scheduled but exist. And these are all on the website if you want more information about any of them and what they're doing. Other groups, ROCPAC, the Rural Oregon Climate Political Action Committee, Rural Oregon's Voice on Climate Action. Hogan Sharow is the person leading that, and the website is there if you're interested in seeing what they're doing and supporting them. So a big, big thanks tonight to our speakers, Erin, Cynthia, Flavia, and if you notice the comments in chat, your enthusiasm was greatly appreciated. And we have others here who've been part of Master Climate Protector and can also offer things that they're doing. I think a key is we're in it together and we're supporting each other. And I think that came out in the things that the three of you were talking about. Thanks to Ellie and to Dale for organizing the program, putting this all together. Really, really appreciate that. And thanks to all of you for joining us. These programs don't mean anything without a wonderful audience like we've had this evening.
And with Carrie O'Brien, we are coast to coast.
So Carrie is now on the East Coast, and so it's a little late there. So we really appreciate that you're joining us, Carrie, and was one of the MCP, I don't remember the year, but before we were on to Zoom. So thanks for being here, Carrie. Please consider signing up for the Master Climate Protector course and share with others that might be interested. I hope you've heard enough tonight to understand the value that these people think that the course does have. So you go to socanmcp.eco and there's all kinds of information specifically about the course there. And finally, I send an email to you with the survey. And if you would give us feedback, that always helps us as we plan our programs. SOCAN website, questions, and if you're able to make a donation, we always appreciate that support. We're looking at next year and lots to be done. So we appreciate your support in whatever way it is. It's all of us together that make a difference.